All right, this is New School Beer Fireside Chats, episode 2. I'm here with Tony Roberts and Christina LaRue from the Oregon Brewers Guild. We're going to chat about the state of the industry, how fests are going to go in this time of the pandemic, and the upcoming Drink Beer at Home festival they're hosting this Saturday. Would you guys both like to introduce yourselves and your role in the Oregon Brewers Guild?
Sure. So Christina LaRue, co-executive director, started with the Guild a year ago in January. Came from about 15 years of experience in the craft beer industry, different roles from GM at Crux, business manager at Worthy, worked as a production assistant at Deschutes for about 5 years. So super excited to be on board. My main focus with the Guild is membership and events. All right.
Tony Roberts, I'm co-executive director. I started a few weeks after Christina, so I'm probably working on about 14 or 15 months here. And I primarily handle marketing, operations, and government affairs for the Guild.
When you guys started, roughly a year ago, what was the plan? What was the big areas you wanted to change or focus on, with Oregon Brewers Guild?
Tony, do you want to start?
Sure. I'll keep the focus to kind of government affairs and marketing. Right, almost as we came on, the Guild hired its first lobbyist or advocate, Jonathan Manton. So our intention there was, Oregon was the only guild of its size in the country to not have someone advocating for them in the state capitol. So it wasn't like we were doing something revolutionary. We were just, in a way, maybe playing catch up a little bit, and just trying to establish a little bit of independence, and position ourselves a little bit better, when big issues come up, as they occasionally do. And obviously right now, government affairs takes up a huge part of not just my job, but Christina's too, just because, there's a lot of advocacy we're doing for brew pubs right now. So that, establishing relationships in the Capitol, establishing relationships with the legislature, working on, issues with our lobbyists was one track we were looking at. And then with marketing, it has been a slow but maybe deliberate process to just modernize some of what the Guild does. As you probably know, this is the old logo. We developed in collaboration with Ben Parsons at Bearlick a new logo. We've reinvigorated the social feeds a little bit, trying to get them going. We've made some sort of new and valuable contacts in the media. And it's a slow process. If you asked me then if we'd have a new website finished by now, I would have thought for sure we did. Mm-hmm. We don't. But that's another thing we're working on, and kind of trying to improve the one we have with a little bit of some patchwork solutions while working on something new. So those are kind of, those are really, there are a lot of little specific things that come up, but in terms of a broad overview of things we're trying to accomplish, that's kind of the, 30,000 foot view.
Well, and for me, events too, looking at the fact that when Tony and I came on, all of our events happen in Portland. And so my goal and working with Tony is trying to figure out how we can spread the love throughout the state, whether it's large events or small events. Another area for me is education. So finding different avenues to help add education to our membership benefits. When we came on, our primary education happened during the annual meeting, which is in January or February. And so finding areas, whether it's at different breweries or partnering with OSU, and being able to really offer quarterly educational sessions is a huge, it was a goal of mine. And we actually were on track for, we did one in October last year, and we were on track for having one in April, but then this happened, so.
Yeah. And I should add, I'm not sure if you mentioned that, how Christina's in Bend and Tony's in Portland, right? So, I mean, how often do you guys actually see each other, and how different is your jobs and how you interact?
Well, up until the pandemic, I was in Portland at least once a month. Yeah, right about once a month. Whether it was board meetings or committee meetings or events that were happening or educational sessions. And so I saw Tony. We would see each other about, would you say it was about once a month?
Yeah, in February, you were here a bunch, maybe even, it felt like we were essentially working together for the,
Yeah,
at
I
least
basically lived in Portland
February.
in February.
Mhm.
But I don't find it difficult. I mean, we're in touch daily via email, on the phone constantly. So I find that the working situation is actually quite nice.
And
I
how?
mean,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tony.
at this point, even if she worked down the block, we still, it's kind of almost irrelevant where we live now.
Right.
And so, how has your plans changed now with the coronavirus?
Well, events wise, it's kind of knocked us down. Hence why we've been trying to get really creative with fundraising ideas. Our two main revenue generating streams are membership and events, and so trying to find ways that we can still keep money coming into the guild and still give back to our members, whether it's through education or webinars. We've partnered with Caputo Group and Bing on weekly webinars that happen on Wednesdays. We support any education, virtual education that comes our way. We're sure to share that with our membership and with our non-members too. We've pretty much opened everything up to every brewer in the state of Oregon, at least for the time being.
Did you have like a projected budget based on your projected revenue streams that's been shot now because of the pandemic?
Tony, do you want to speak to budget?
I don't know that it's shot right now. If there's no fresh hop, I guess it depends on how long this lasts. Is the answer, and I think that's probably the answer for a lot of small businesses and breweries too. If there's no Brewers Dinner in July, if there's no Fresh Hop Fest in September, and we are anticipating that even if those events do happen, they'll happen in a different way than they've happened in the past. So that will absolutely present problems for us from a budget standpoint. But the Stay Home Drink Beer Fest, especially for something that we've done very quickly on a wing and a prayer, has been fairly successful so far. The community's been incredibly supportive. Our brewers have been incredibly supportive. So I think that gives us some hope for the future. But like everyone, the longer this drags on, the more difficult things get.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously there's going to be a shortfall because of the events, but have you had any other hits to the revenue stream? Like, has there been any brewers or other members that have been like, we got to save this money, or thought it's not worth it for them?
Membership dues it's difficult. We basically, when this happened, we put a halt to collecting. We sent an email out to all of our members that still had open invoices or were coming up to owing dues, and let them know that we completely understood where they are, that we're all in the same boat right now. But if they can afford to go ahead and pay those dues, that it would help the guild, but that if they can't at the moment, that we understand, and then we'll look to hopefully collect those either throughout the year doing monthly payments, or later in the year when folks are back on their feet.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, anyone who wants access to our resources, to our email lists, to our groups, we've just kind of let them in. Mm-hmm. Because at this point, I mean, we want everyone to succeed regardless of whether or not they've paid their dues or have been a member. So at this point, it's just, that we're kind of offering our resources up to all the breweries in the state.
Mhm. And what kind of things can the Guild do to help breweries and beer businesses during this time?
From my perspective, what I spend a lot of time doing is sort of screaming from the rooftops to any legislator or congressperson who will listen that, you know, the type of assistance and aid that brew pubs, and I say brew pubs, but most small businesses, especially those in the hospitality industry, need to get by. You may have heard this from other folks, you know, the payroll protection program doesn't really work for brew pubs. It doesn't really work for restaurants. It has a lot of restrictions that make it difficult to access and to use that money. So we have spent a lot of time advocating for forgivable loans and grants that are outside of that program. The state has come up with a modest sum of $10 million, but it will only be accessible to businesses under 25 folks, under 25 employees. So that'll be open to a lot of our breweries. Our president, Dan Engler, is on the committee that will determine how that money is doled out. And then we're working very hard, not just us, but at the national level with the Brewers Association on what I guess they're tentatively calling CARES 2.0, which we're fighting really hard to have an aid package in there that is hospitality driven and does not come with the same restrictions as the payroll protection program, so that our breweries can get some forgivable money that they can actually use. It would really throw a lifeline to them. So that, those are some of the examples of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. And the upcoming festival, how difficult has that been to put together, and what can people expect if they sign up?
It's actually not been as difficult as I was anticipating it being. Tony and I, made the decision. We were throwing around ideas on how to be creative with fundraising. And other guilds across the state have recently been doing these virtual beer fests and been successful in one aspect or another. And so we made a decision just to go with it. I think that was about 10 days ago, and blasted out to all of our brewers, hey, here's what we're doing. Who would be interested in participating? This is our thought process. These are the 2 platforms that we want to use. And the response was great. I mean, we have over 30 breweries now that are participating in 4 hours of festival time. And then ticket sales have really started to take off, which is exciting. I think that people are itching for things to do because they're stuck at home. And what better thing to spend your afternoon than supporting your favorite local brewery?
Mm-hmm.
I have to give Christina credit. I was skeptical. I always am. And I was like, and then we watched the Minnesota Brewers Guild's festival. I was like, oh, this is fun. Like, I'm interested in this. I watched the entire thing. I didn't even know half the breweries. I'd never heard of them, but it was just kind of engaging and fun. And that was when I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, this can be fun.
This could work.
How is it going to be interactive when people join up for the fest?
There are parts of it that are more interactive than others. So the 2 platforms we have, the main platform is the Facebook page. So we've created a private group basically for the event that everyone that buys tickets will have access to. And on that platform, we'll have Facebook Live videos. A few of those will be interactive. So Gigantic is doing a food and beer pairing that you can purchase a package beforehand and go through that with them during their video. Sonia Marie from Lycum is doing a painting session. So she's going to Bob Ross it out. So we're encouraging people to get their painting supplies and paint along with her. And then our other platform is Zoom. So we've set up webinar styles. So we have 4 hours worth. About every half hour, you'll have a new brewer that comes on. And those are either panel discussions, like John Harris is going to tell his story about Ecliptic. We've got Stormbreaker and Bearlick and Block 15. They're going to talk about distribution during pandemic. We've got Sam and Sean from Von Ebert that are going to do talk about IPA variants and wild fermentation. So those will be interactive with the fact that at the end of those, our attendees can ask questions. So they'll be able to submit their questions via chat room, and then we can have those panelists answer those questions for them.
So you'll be logged on yourself, watching the comments the whole time and able to respond in real time, sort of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the goal. So we'll see if we're successful on Saturday.
Hold on a second, I gotta pause this recording. So what do you think the future of Beer Fest is going to look like? I mean, after this one, moving into the summer and fall.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's all going to depend on reopening the state and how quickly we can get to large group status. If it's not going to happen for a while, these virtual fests may keep going through the year. I don't know. I mean, Tony?
I think I can't imagine being able to have 1,000 people gathered together at any point during the summer, let alone, more than 1,000. And when does that happen? Does it happen by your sort of Oktoberfest season? I mean, they've already canceled the Oktoberfest. So I don't like the immediate future of beer fests. I don't like our chances in terms of being able to have a traditional classic beer fest. But, part of the nice thing about doing this early is that we're going to kind of hopefully work out some of the wrinkles that we don't even know exist yet. We're feeling pretty good about where we are for Saturday, but there will be ridiculous little things like a kid screaming in the background or a cat scratching at the door or something crashes. So I think working out those wrinkles to move forward, OLCC today put out virtual beer tasting guidelines, what you are and aren't allowed to do for virtual beer tasting. And they're not restrictive. And they did it in a very helpful way. They acknowledged that, like, initially they did them just for wine, and they acknowledged, like, oh, this isn't a one size fits all thing. So we'll do some rules that will apply to you, and they're helpful. But I think, the very nature of the, Liquor Control Commission in the state putting out virtual tasting guidelines, I think shows that they understand that, they didn't just put them out because of the Stay Home Drink Beer Festival. They put them out because they're anticipating that type of activity to continue for, an undetermined amount of time.
Are you as a guild planning any other events yet, or are you still taking kind of a wait and see approach?
I think it's a wait and see for right now, to see what the first steps are when the state does reopen. I mean, at this point, I don't anticipate us being able to have our brewers dinner. I want to try to stay optimistic that it could potentially happen. But that event's, 600 people. So, and then our event after that would be our Fresh Hop Fest, which is our big event. That's our biggest event for the year. And if that can't happen, we may have to look at getting this kind of creative for that festival as well. I don't know. Things are so up in the air right now. I foresee hopefully being able to add some educational sessions, whether it's virtual or not. When OSU is able to get back into session, I'm working with their team and their food science division on being able to offer some sort of educational track, like a half-day conference for our members, and we'll be able to hopefully do more of that throughout the year.
I think what's interesting, and Ezra, this, we have engaging personalities in the community. So I think that we can, for all of us who do festivals and events and education sessions, I think we can be successful. I mean, you could just point your camera at one of the co-founders of Gigantic and give them a topic and say, go, and you would get great content, right? So we have people who I think can really shine in these sort of circumstances. It's just a matter of figuring out the best interface, the most engaging way to do it, the way to do it in a way that like a beer fan wants. What do you want to see? And the way to like make sure, if we can't do a traditional fresh hop fest, in addition to missing a lot of opportunity to advocate and raise some funds, we also buy beer from our breweries for that fest. And it's like, what we're hoping this fest does is continue to raise awareness of the fact that like there are more than 100 breweries and brew pubs at this point in the state that are offering takeout and to go, and just kind of like, raising a little bit of awareness for that, and, helping people to realize how incredibly easy some of these setups are in terms of like getting a beer left on your porch, or just having it ready at a takeout window. I don't know. I think there's potential. I'm not feeling this super doom and gloom because I know what great personalities we have, and I know we still have access to great beer. It's just figuring out what's the best way to get it in front of people in a way that they'll enjoy.
What are you hearing from Oregon brewery members about, the potential for some of these guys going out of business? And I know it's all hypothetical and we don't want to get too negative, but like how dire is it right now? Christina?
Right now, I am not aware of a single brewery that is imminently, like in imminent trouble, like the lights are out tomorrow. But, it's important for people to understand like how important draft beer is to independent craft breweries. This isn't, like a macro situation where you're just selling a zillion cans, in a Safeway or a Fred Meyer or whatever. Revenue streams are dependent on draft beer. The draft beer market has evaporated. It's gone. So even though you see these stories about how package sales are up by, certain huge percentages, it doesn't mean that the revenue has come back. I think that you have a lot of breweries out there and brewers who are working 2 or 3 times as much as they were a few months ago to make a fraction of the profit that they were making 2 or 3 months ago. And in the time being, that's enough to keep the lights on. But, without some help from the government, in the form of forgivable loans or, deferment of excise taxes and some other things, I don't know how long you can keep going like this.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard anything from other breweries, Christina, or breweries in your region of Central Oregon?
Kind of similar to what Tony's saying. You saw the layoffs that happened at Deschutes. Fortunately, I've actually swung by there yesterday to pick up some beer for our Oregon Beer Box raffle and chatted with one of the brewers there, and he's positive, right? He's keeping a positive attitude. He said everybody there is keeping a positive attitude. A lot of those layoffs were temporary, and they're hoping to bring them back. And you're seeing that throughout the industry. Sun River went through some layoffs. I believe there's like 2 other breweries here locally that went down to just owners, running the business and brewing and transferring tanks. And the hope is that they'll be able to get back up and running as soon as possible. But like Tony said, I don't think anybody, it's make or break today or tomorrow. But if this continues to go on for weeks or months, then there's serious issues that are coming down the pipeline. And it's worrisome. But yeah, I think we just have to keep a positive attitude. And for Tony and I, it comes down to how can we support them? How can we keep generating business, going to, you know, whether it's to-go beer or curbside pickups, to-go food, these events that we're trying to host. Like, our support is getting people to their doorstep at this point, and the legislative work that we're doing.
So you don't see, at least in Oregon, the level of doom and gloom that, let's say, the Brewers Association has polled members and said something like 60% of them might close. You don't think we're in that situation here, though?
Not in the 1 to 3 month time frame necessarily, but I mean, we're not in that situation now, and part of that has been overwhelming and awesome consumer support. You know, like, people who drink beer in Oregon are like legit beer fans, and they are going to their breweries to find beer, like not just going to the local grocery store, which they're also doing, but like actually seeking out beer from the brewery, which is the reason that I think we have fewer breweries in trouble. But, you know, like I said, all those package sales don't replace the loss of draft and the loss of tap room revenue and the loss of events that generate revenue. And while we may not lose, I can't remember what the number was, X amount of breweries in 3 months, if this closure extends out to that 3 month point, and if more folks who are currently able to spend money on beer and other things aren't able to because they are also laid off or have their hours further reduced, yeah, then, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't know many small businesses that can survive that. You know, how can you survive what is looking to be like a 60, 70, even 80% drop in revenue for a sustained period of time? You can't. And that includes brew pubs, that includes restaurants, that includes your local coffee shop or bookstore.
Mm-hmm. Have you got any sense or have any contact with the state government on when we might get a chance of some reopening and or guidelines for on premise rules when we do get somewhat of an opening?
Draft guidelines are out now. I think there was just a story on OPB a few hours ago, actually, about that. But they're just draft guidelines. And I don't know. What we've seen is that the governor's office has been pretty willing to work with industry to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. But they kind of start with everything, and then they put the draft out there for folks to review and then sort of work down from there. So I just don't. There's draft guidelines that include all sorts of rules and recommendations. But I hesitate to, you know, I think those guidelines will change. That said, when places open, they're not going to open as normal. I think that's pretty clear if you look at the draft guidelines. There will be either capacity restrictions or, you know, your 6 foot social distancing restrictions, or a combination of both. And for big restaurants that can potentially pivot to taking reservations, even if they haven't before, I mean, that'll be a big hit, but you'll be able to get folks in the door. But I mean, you know, so you live by Montevilla Tap Room, I think, Ezra, like
Monteville Brew Works and Roscoe's and Thresher.
Yeah, I mean, how many people can you get in those spaces if they're all 6 feet apart? Mm-hmm. You know, if you have capacity at a place like that, like what does capacity become? You know, and I think that just underscores the need for like real aid at the state and federal level, because even if we were to open things up to some degree at some point in May or June, it's not going to be the same for a while. There will be mandated restrictions. There will be changes in consumer behavior. So it's not like folks will just turn a switch on, you know, June 1st and suddenly everything will be back to normal. It will be a long process to get back to normal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I wonder if this could result in much higher prices for pints. I mean, when you're talking about those likely distancing guidelines, you can fit much less people in there, that they are going to need to make a lot more money. Before now, right, it seemed like things were moving a little bit more towards tasting rooms and selling draft over the bar at your own establishments. And then Do you think this is sort of just like almost like a complete reversal of that? I mean, how is that going to change the way people do business?
There's people in cans today that weren't, well, if you look in, again, we'll bring up Montevilla, weren't 3 days ago, right? Like people are moving to package who maybe didn't, I'm not saying they didn't want to, but didn't anticipate they would need to immediately. So I think there's certainly some pivoting that has happened that'll have long-term implications in the way that folks do business. But to me, the craft beer model is really built on the back of the brew pub concept of the community gathering place where folks hang out and have a pint. And I just don't, I'm not saying that's going to come back right away, but I don't think we're at a point where that's never coming back. I think it's coming back. We just don't know when.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My last question is, what can people do and businesses do right now, to support the industry?
Go out and buy local. Visit your local favorite craft brewery. And that's one of the biggest things that folks can do.
Sign up for the virtual fest.
For the virtual fest.
We'll take that one. I'll give a plug too for our t-shirts are selling really well. We also through Saturday afternoon we'll have tickets for our beer box raffle, which we had 14 or 15 of our breweries generously donated some hard to find and in some cases pretty rare bottles. So we're going to raffle. Those are many of the bottles behind me. That's right. Ale Song, Ale Apothecary, Von Ebert, Berlick. I mean, the list goes on. Freem. So that's kind of a cool little raffle that we'll be doing. There's 2 grand prize winners that each get a case, and then there's 3 additional winners who will get a couple beers and some glassware and some swag. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you both for your time. See you online, if not in person soon.
Thanks, Ezra.
Thank you, Ezra. Maybe we'll have a pint soon.
I hope so.